Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time for the next instalment of the Quantum Leap Business Show, going around the world, giving ideas, inspiration and insights to small business owners. And it's my pleasure to have on the show right now the founder of Property Investors Network. There's a mouthful. Simon Zutshi. Simon, welcome to the show.
Hello, John. Delighted to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
Simon, you founded Property Investors Network 18 years ago.
Yes, I did, yeah.
What was the why behind all of that?
Well, actually, it was very self-serving, to be honest, John. I started investing in property back in 1995. I bought a house to live in, rented out some of the rooms to my friends who were still studying at uni. I just started work at Cadbury's in Birmingham as a graduate trainee. And I didn't know anything about property. I wanted to have my own home, and I realized I was living for free, and that was pretty good. And a few years later, I bought a house a bit closer to Cadbury's. I kept the first one, rented it out, and that's when I really understood the power of investing in property. And the property is about having your own little cash machine at the end of each month. After you pay the mortgage and the insurance and the bills, there's money left over, profit, and you don't have to go to work to get it. And I thought it was amazing. So I started to get more of those. And in 2001, I left my full-time job. And it took me to 2003 to completely replace my income. Now, a few years before, John, I started investing in my own personal development. And I went to a Tony Robbins event in the year 2000. And I really learned about the importance of environment, getting like-minded people around you. And the problem I had was I'd done okay in my project. I'd made loads of mistakes, by the way, because I was doing it on my own. And I thought there's got to be a smarter way to do this. I've got to maybe connect with other people who are doing this. And I'm sure I can learn from them. We can help each other. And all my friends were busy working still. None of my family had ever invested apart from their own homes. So I really was very much on my own. So I went online to see if there was some sort of group I could join. At the time, I was going to breakfast networking meetings for my business, which was great, but none of them really invested in property either. So I wanted a group that I could go to, and there wasn't anything. So I thought, well, I'll set it up, really. And that's what I did. And 18 years later, we got 52 meetings around the UK every month. And we're just about to go international as well. So we're looking to start up in Australia, first of all, and then America and a few other places.
Wow. So it's started off as a little idea, and it's got out of control, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big monster now. Yeah.
Simon, since 9/11 and the global financial crisis in 2008, and now COVID, they're big obstacles that no one can foresee coming, and what have you. What have you done at the property investors markets here in the UK to combat adversity that you can't see coming? Are there any advice that you could give out there to the small business owners that get whacked in the face?
Yeah, so thinking about business, I think we need to accept that change is going to happen. Change is inevitable, and sometimes worldwide events like 9/11 do have an impact on the world. Obviously, particularly on property, the global financial crisis, the credit crunch in 2008, 2009 had a massive effect on property. The property market came down. And interestingly, we were investing at that time. We were teaching people how to invest. And a lot of people were running for the hills, saying, oh my God, I'm going to sell property. When actually, it was a great time to buy property as long as you knew what you were doing. And more recently, when COVID hit, I think certainly in the UK, when we had the first lockdown in March 2020, April 2020, a lot of shops, everything shut. And for the very first time, commercial landlords who had great, AAA clients were being told by the clients, we're not going to pay you rent this quarter. I think, oh my God, what do you mean? And the Bank of England were predicting a massive crash in property by 16%, they said, and they've got a room full of people much smarter than you and me, John, who work this stuff out. And I thought the market was going to come down as well. And then guess what? The government intervened and actually propped it up, and we had a boom, a really unexpected boom. So I think we need to accept that change is going to happen. We never know what's going to happen in the future. The best thing to do is plug into people around you. Listening to shows like this, John, hearing what other people are doing, and collective ideas is probably an important thing. And what we did was we were actually planning to go to a big property exhibition in April, which obviously was cancelled. The week before, actually the week off on the Monday, the show was on the Friday and Saturday, and it was completely cancelled, obviously. And we just literally the week before gone into lockdown. I thought, you know what? our clients, they need support, they need guidance right now. We need to be thought leaders. So my recommendation to any business owner is become a thought leader if you can for your clients. And what we did, I called some of the other speakers, the top guys in the UK, and said, hey, look, let's put on a completely free online property exhibition and let people know what's happening and what they can maybe do. And we did that. We had over 2,000 people register, 1,000 people turn up throughout the day, completely free, just no selling, just having leadership, just showing people what to do and what they can do. And I think our clients really appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know, yeah, I used to have in situ events and many of them.
Yes.
So how did you take that obviously online, and what were the differences during COVID? What were the pluses and what were the minuses, if any?
Yeah, so we have 52 events a month. As we record this, some of those are still virtual, some have gone back to live. The plan is for more to go back to live. We're slowly rolling that out, but we were very quick to react. I could see the writing on the wall. What happened is, so that's 50 physical events every month, as well as our training courses. So we probably do 600 live events a year, which is a huge amount, right? I guess we're an entertainment, an education events company. And that's a big change. And I know there were some people who were wiped out because they didn't adapt quick enough. So we had an event at the beginning of March, and this is when people started to become aware of it. We said, hey, look, if you've got any symptoms, please stay. When about 10% of the audience said, you know what, we're not going to come. So we went down from 440 down to about 400 people at this live event. And we were making everyone wash their hands. We had hand sanitizer. So we were being careful. But the week after that event, that was right at the beginning of March 2020, things changed. And I had a meeting with my team and said, look, you know what, guys, I think we're not going to be able to do live events much longer. And we need to plan for that. I hope it doesn't happen, but if this gets worse, we need to do our bit to make sure that this is not spreading. And so we had a meeting, we came up with strategy, and it was about just a few days later, one of my hosts who runs one of our pin meetings, they actually live in Spain, and they're financially free thanks to their property. They fly back once a month to run the pin meeting and to check on their property and stuff. And they said that Spain had just gone to lockdown, and they couldn't actually fly out of Spain. And I called Donna, who runs our pin meeting, said, Donna, that's it. We've got to do it. Yep. And full credit to my team. And and any business owner, you've got to appreciate your team, right? Because I can only do what I do because of the amazing team behind me. Over the weekend, we planned for it, but over the weekend, they pulled out stops. And from the Monday, that was our first virtual, and everything was virtual after that. Which is a crazy thing to happen, really. So those are our network meetings, and we responded very quickly. And it was interesting. We charge people £20 to go along to one of our meetings. Anyone can go to their first one for free to check it out. But after that, we value what we do. We went online and we had to make a decision. We said, look, do we go to a free model, or do we stay at £20? And the reason I'm sharing this is because I want to talk through the strategic thinking around this, but I think it might help other business owners, because sometimes people do things at a knee-jerk reaction and they make the wrong choice. So we thought, okay, we've got to think long term. We don't know how long this is going to be. And it's still the same great meeting, same great content. And the benefit of doing virtual is, well, people got no traveling time, no traveling costs. Yep. And in fact, we found people able to attend meetings in an area where they wanted to invest, but they wouldn't normally go to because it was a long way out of air. And in fact, we had a load of international investors who want to invest in the UK because it's a great place to invest, who wanted to come and connect with people in local areas. So actually going virtual kind of opened things up. But on the downside, sometimes a lot of people expect everything on the internet to be free. So our numbers are slightly down at the meetings because somebody said, well, I don't want to pay for an online meeting. Well, hang on a minute. To be honest, if you think like that, you're probably not the kind of person we want. Yep. Because it's a very scarce mindset. It's the same value we're giving you and same connections. We use Zoom to have breakout rooms to meet and connect with us. So same great value, but actually it's easier to attend. And you've got international investors who you probably want to connect with are there as well. So we had slightly lower numbers because we didn't have hotel costs to pay for. Actually, our profit went up, which was pretty good. And we maintained that £20 fee because we knew when we go back to physical meetings, a lot of people have got used to doing everything online. I mean, a lot of people are zoomed out and they don't want to do stuff online. They're desperate to get back in the room, have physical connection. But also a lot of people if you then say, well, you've got to get out your house, you've got to come into it, and you've got to pay for it, which you didn't do before, that could be your barrier to entry. So we thought, to preserve our future business, we have to keep the charge there. We're still giving great value. It's even easier to attend. And we've done that. And that was absolutely the right thing to do. Whereas some of our competitors, some people went free. And John, you and I know when things are free, they could be fantastic value, but unfortunately people don't value them when they haven't paid for them.
100%.
So a little lesson there in strategic thing that might help people. So you've got to adapt. We've got to think long term, not just short term. What's the long term effect of the things you're doing?
Yep. Easy to drop your pants, hard to pick them up again.
Exactly. Yes. Very eloquent.
Simon, Rishi Sunak, and people have a happy knack in the UK, and I guess in other places, of having pot shots at everybody in government, making tough decisions from no playbook. But he did a lot of things for the property sector. But if there's one thing that he could do to the property sector right now, what would that be, do you think?
It's a really difficult question, that, John, because I think, so the Conservative government we have in the UK at the moment is supposed to be all for free economy, entrepreneurship, etc. If you look at some of the things they've introduced over the last few years, they're not exactly pro-landlords. And there are a couple of million landlords in the UK. And I think the Conservatives have been trying to, in the UK and many places, there's a bit of a negative feel about landlords because, there are some landlords who might have not very good property. And actually, our education, we say, look, you want to provide really great, fantastic quality accommodation because we should be having a good quality product. But also, we don't want to compete on price. We want to make sure we're appealing to the more discerning client who's prepared to pay more. So we always talk about have great quality property. But there are some bad landlords out there who don't maintain their properties. And I think a small number get a bad name for the industry. So the press like to have a pop at investors and landlords sometimes. And I think Conservatives are kind of, some of the things they're doing are kind of aligning a little bit more towards tenants. And most tenants are never going to vote for Conservatives anyway. So it's a misplaced thing. So I've not been that impressed with the Conservatives over the last few years. But I have to say, what the intervention that they brought in when the Bank of England was saying property prices were going to crash 16%, and most people thought that, the initiatives they brought in, which were obviously bringing in furlough, which was not just for property, but for the whole economy, that was a stroke of genius. In property, they introduced a stamp duty holiday to stimulate the market. And then obviously they had the bounce back loans to help business. Now, you weren't supposed to use bounce back loans for property, but I think lots of people did. And so there was an unexpected boom in the property market. And so actually, I think the way the Conservatives reacted was very good. And I have a feeling if it was another party in power, it would have been a totally different situation. Now, the problem with that is obviously we as taxpayers, everyone listening to this is probably a taxpayer, having to pay for that for the next number of generations. And so I think the Chancellor, the last budget he did was actually a very clever budget because it was designed to stimulate the economy. He was saying, look, taxes are going to come, but a lot of people in the press were worried about, and I've learned not to read and believe what this says in the press because they get to something, they run with it, which is completely wrong very often. And people think it's gospel if it's in the press. Stop reading the newspapers, guys. It's full of rubbish anyway, and negativity. But they were convinced that capital gains was going up, and that didn't happen. And it might happen in the future. So I think that actually I couldn't suggest anything that he would do different right now to stimulate the market. I think he's done a great job.
Brilliant. Okay. So, Simon, there's plenty of disruptors in the marketplace, and Airbnb and Deliveroo and those sort of things. And you've had Purplebricks in the property or the real estate market. What effect, if any, has the disruptors like Purplebricks had on your space?
So obviously, the great thing about the internet, it's perfect for disruptors. You can come in, you can kind of look at an industry and work out, okay, where can we shake things up a bit? And I know we're going to have listeners from all around the world. So in the UK, it's slightly different from maybe America or even Australia, where in America, you have a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. Whereas in the UK, we typically just have an estate agent who looks after the seller. And then we as the buyers, we go to the estate agent, we negotiate with them, and they look after the interest of the seller. So, and it is a bit of an antiquated system, you know. They all advertise online now, obviously through various platforms, Zoopla, Rightmove, etc. And then they charge fees fairly low compared to some other places in the world, typically between 1.5, maybe 2%, which is a lot lower than many other countries. And yet some people have come in and said, well, we can reduce the fees for you. And for many, many people, cost is the most important thing, right? So Purplebricks has been incredibly popular. It's where really there's not really the same kind of structure. You often have a local agent, but often you don't quite get the same service. And I think what happens with many disruptors, they come in and they're trying to bring down costs, and as a result of that, service suffers. So I think the true disruptors are people who can come in and they can make things quicker, easier, or cheaper, but without losing that service factor. And I think, you know, one of the things we've seen because of COVID is probably the decline of the high street, which was happening anyway, has been sped up by 10 years because of what happened in COVID. Yep. And so the shopping experience now in the UK and around the world is different. You know, most people now, they might still go to shops to look at things, but they buy things online and you can send them back. It's very, very easy to shop online. And it's interesting that a lot of the business models out there, you know, like the Deliveroo and I don't think, and I might be wrong here, to get me wrong, but I think people like Deliveroo, they're not actually making any money yet. And some of these big companies, they are losing millions and millions of pounds a year, but investors are piling in and supporting these companies because they think the long-term potential is there. And obviously some companies will drop away, you might get more monopolies, and then you're going to make money in the future. So I think whilst, again, it's inevitable that change is going to happen, disruptors are going to come in, I think a lot of these companies are going to fall by the wayside because they're just not profitable and they won't last. But there'll be some that get it right, and actually they bring a great quality and product and service to people, and people go, not just because they're the cheapest, because they get the great service. And we're going to talk about something else later on that I think we've kind of cracked this. It's a great example of it.
Yep. So, Simon, as you know, I held a property license where you actually have to hold a license in Australia in order to sell property. Yes. You don't need to do that here in the UK. And
correct.
What do you think of the old, the English system where you got gazumping and you've got chains and whatnot, which is frustrating for buyers and sellers. Do you think there's going to be a move towards the Australian Scottish model where you have a more defined contract system?
Yeah, so I think that might happen. And in fact, I think one of the disruptions that's got the conveyancing, the buying process in the UK is so outdated, so archaic. There are several companies that are looking at that, trying to speed that up and actually thinking about things like blockchain, which is where information is held. You know, that's got to be an area of potential. And it's about getting the government and land registry that keep all the records of property ownership bought into that. And that's going to be the challenge, because sometimes government organizations are a bit slow to move and adapt. And but yeah, I think there's got to be some changes there. An interesting stat, John, is 1 in 3 properties in the UK fall through. 1 in 3 property transactions, and that's often because the people buying can't get the finance. Sometimes something comes up in the survey and they change their mind. But in Scotland, for example, they have the house valuation. So that's done, and that's the official figure that's used almost before you buy a house. So you kind of know what the bank's going to value it at. So it's not like you put in an offer and they say, oh no, it's not worth that. So there's more certainty there. So what it's going to look like, I'm not sure, but I think it's going to have to change, because in Sweden, I know I've got some clients out there, you know, you literally buy a house in a couple of days if you want. It's that quick, and it has to change here.
Yep. I was even speaking to someone the other day that was developing a blockchain and NFTs, non-fungible tokens, where you could, if you had £1 million house, you could divide it into 1 million chunks and sell off 49%, all that sort of stuff. So
there's really interesting stuff happening, and there are certain websites where you can invest in real estate and do exactly that, buy a small part of it. So it's an interesting space to watch.
Simon, you're probably regarded as, if you're not the guru, you're right up there in top 1% of authorities in the UK. What would be your 3 top tips or your top couple of tips in anybody out there wanting to invest in property?
Okay, so the first thing, and you might explicitly say, is all about education. You know, to be honest, there's a lot of common sense in property investing, but it's amazing how uncommon common sense is. And one of my favorite expressions, John, is you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's so true in life generally, particularly in property. Any idiot can go and buy a property, and many idiots do go and buy property. And when I bought my first, I didn't have a clue. I was lucky that it was in the area I happened to want to live, was actually a very good demand, and I've always been able to rent it out very easily. But it's about knowing what to buy, what price to buy. So it's very different if you're buying an investment as opposed to where you're going to live. It's a completely different set of buying decisions there. So first of all, you want to educate yourself. That's the really important thing. Second thing is you always want to make sure you do your due diligence and research. And the first part of that is working out what makes a good deal for you. And you're going to get that knowledge through education, obviously, but you want to work out, okay, so if I'm buying an investment, I want to buy something that's going to give me cash flow, going to give me profit every single month, and hopefully the long-term growth as well. But what cash flow do I want? What return on investment do I want? And again, this comes from education. So that when you spot a good, the third thing is, so first thing is educate yourself. Secondly, know what makes a good deal for you, because what's good for you might not be what's good for me, John, for example. The third thing is, when you spot a good deal, you need to move quickly. Because if it is a good deal, guess what? Other people will find it as well. And as I say, you always want to do your due diligence. So I'm not saying you don't do that, but when you're educated, it doesn't take long to quickly assess, is this a good deal or not? And if it is, move quickly, because great deals will move quickly. And you know, successful people generally are decisive people. If you sit there thinking about something too long, overanalyzing, someone else will probably come and snap it up. So those are probably my top 3 tips.
Great ones they are. Simon, anybody wanting to borrow to get into the market, either for themselves or as an investment, what are the top 1 or 2 do's and don'ts?
Okay, so it's different if you're buying for yourself as an own home as opposed to an. Let's talk about own home first of all. So when you buy your own home, most places around the world, it's going to be based on affordability. So they're going to look at your income. And a mistake that many business owners make, as a business owner, we want to minimize our tax. We might put a lot of expenses through the business, for example, and that causes a problem. When we come to buy a property, if we're only declaring a small income, well, the lender's going to say, well, you don't earn enough to be able to afford to pay the mortgage. So what you might want to do, if you're thinking about buying and you're a business owner, you might want to maybe increase the amount you pay yourself the year before you buy. So you're getting your official tax return showing how much you're going to pay more tax on that, but that means you're going to be able to afford a much bigger mortgage on your property. So that's the first thing. Think about your personal income. And the other thing is, and this is important whether you're buying an investment or in your own name, you want to make sure that you have a good credit report. You know, if you have been defaulting on credit card payments or other mortgage payments, there aren't that many lenders who are going to want to give you a mortgage, of course. So making sure you've got a good credit report is important. And certainly in the UK, one very important thing that people miss, for some reason, lenders in the UK, they like it if you're on the local electoral register. So you need to be registered with the local council to vote. And if you're not on that register, then a lot of lenders may not lend to you. So that's for your own home. Now, the good news is when you are buying an investment property, because of the tax changes over the last few years, for most people, it's probably best to put that into a company structure. And there are lenders in the UK who will lend you money if you have a brand new business, no track record, because it's not based on the business, it's based on the property that you are buying. So again, you've got to find a good property deal, but you can absolutely get a mortgage on that, and it's not based on your income. Some lenders might want to see a minimum £25,000 income. Some lenders just need to see an income, and that's it. But you can absolutely right now, if you live in the UK, set up a brand new property company, no track record, you will be able to get a mortgage on that.
Okay, there's some great pieces of snippets of wisdom there. So thank you for that. So Simon, following on from that, you've set up Crowd Property. So how does that fit into the mix?
So, well, One of the concepts that's really important, everyone needs to listen very carefully. Some people might be listening and say, well, that's great, but I don't have enough money to invest in property. Here's the secret you need to understand. You don't need to have a lot of money to invest if you know what you're doing and if you know how to find great deals. And that's good news, because at some point, everybody's going to run out of money. If they're investing in property and they're using typically a 25% deposit to put down, you're going to run out of money at some point. And some people will run out sooner than others. So what all successful investors do is we use our money and we use other people's money to fund our deals. Now you might think, why on earth would someone give you money to put into your property? It's because you help them make money. Because people have got money in the bank right now or in their business bank account doing absolutely nothing for them. And we can help them get a fantastic return of their money compared to what they're getting right now. Now, obviously, if you lend money to people, you need to be very careful. They know what they're doing, etc. But once you're educated, once you're finding good deals, you can absolutely use other people's money. And I like to walk the talk. I do what I teach my students to do. So probably in about 2012, I started doing larger projects. So I've taken some care homes that we converted into apartments. The biggest was a care home into 45 units. I've taken a youth center into 20 apartments. I've taken a pub into an 11-bed guest house. I've taken some big houses into blocks of flats, 1 into 7, 1 into block of 3. And you know, they require a lot of money. So what I've done is I've gone out to private investors, people who've got chunks of 50K or more, often multiples of that, and they basically lend the money to me. We put it into the project and we give them a great rate of return, and they get to look over my shoulder and learn from the opportunity. And you know what, the interest is great, but very often people say, you know, it's the ability to see how these deals are done is actually far more valuable sometimes than the interest they get. Okay. And then once it's done, we either sell it or we refinance and pay everyone back. So I was doing that since 2012. And I realized there were lots of people on my database from my network meetings who would love to get a better return on their money, but didn't have as much as 50K or didn't want to lend it to me because they were using it on their own projects, but they had some money put aside. And on the other hand, we had people who were doing our training who were finding really good development projects, and they were struggling to get finance from banks. And banks really don't understand property. They might lend, but they really don't get it. There's all sorts of silly questions. And if you've ever applied for development finance, it is a real pain. And I was actually at a business event. So I'm always going to events. I'm always educating myself, trying to learn and get better. And I was at a business event, and I was actually a panelist talking about how I'd grown the PIN network and the community we built through that. And there was someone else on the panel, a guy called Simon Dixon, who'd set up a business called Bank to the Future. And he was basically helping businesses raise money through crowdfunding. And I didn't really understand what crowdfunding was or peer-to-peer lending, but I was sitting there listening, thinking, you know what, maybe we could do this in property. Maybe we could find great property deals, and we could find people who've got money. We could bring them together. We could create an online platform. We could take care of all the compliance and the legal stuff needs to happen, the paperwork, and we could do the security. And I thought that'd be a great idea. So I came up with this idea, spoke to my business partners, and basically I set this thing up, and I brought in some co-founders who are people I knew in the property world. One was a 35-year plus chartered surveyor, and a guy who's a management consultant. I thought, let's get some other experts and brains around this. And we created this platform, which we first launched in, I think, 2014. And it took about probably about 4 or 5 months to get our first deal funded, because it was a new concept and it really was a kind of pioneering thing to do. And now, you know, 8 years later or so, we've funded, I think, over 170 million pounds of projects. If you go to crowdproperty.com and watch a project, it normally funds within minutes when we turn it live. And the team have just secured 300 million pounds of institutional funding. And I say the team, this is the best bit, John. I've set this business up so I don't have to be there. I don't run it. And I got a great board who are there, who are probably far better than I would do this. And a lesson to all entrepreneurs is, you know, you don't have to do everything yourself. And in fact, if you're doing everything, you're not going to be able to grow and scale your business. You've got to get people who are better than you to come in to do the rest. And when you start, yes, I was doing a lot of it. You bootstrap it. We've actually done several raises, and we keep on, every time we raise money, we grow the business to the next level. And it is now a significant business. I'm not the only, but I'm the major shareholder, but I have very little to do with the day-to-day, which is just absolutely brilliant as far as I'm concerned. And long may it continue. So we help people, and we've actually expanded to Australia, where you're from as well. We've done a partnership over there. So you can go and check out crownproperty.com.
Brilliant. It reminds me that of the saying that it's hard to soar like an eagle if you're surrounded by turkeys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, come back to environment, which we talked about, why set up PIN in the first place. You've got to get like-minded people around you.
Yep. Simon, do you use sales funnels or any other social selling strategies at the moment to put bums on seats at your events and other things that you do?
Absolutely do. So there's two things there. Yes, we use funnels. So I guess our PIN meetings are a funnel to a certain extent. People can come along and come completely free to their first one to check it out, see if they like it. Let's go to pinmeeting.co.uk and come along and try it out. And then we don't do hard sales. And John, you've been to some of our events, you know yourself. So what we do is we have like a PIN meeting, then there's some online training, and you've been to one of our 3-day events where, what we do is we give massive value. And I think the best way to sell to anyone, and anyone who's listening, if you own a business, listen carefully to this. If you give value to your clients and you give them more value than they've paid you for, they love it and they want to come back and they want to do more. And also, when we have so many successful students, we take videos of that. We put that out on social media. We put it on YouTube so people can go and do their research before they come and invest in themselves to do training with us, and they can see what other people like them have achieved. So that social proof is really important. And one of the benefits of having the PIN meetings, we don't have to do a hard sales pitch of those. We say, hey, here's what we've got. But people to go along, meet so many people who've done our training. And by the way, we've got people who've done other people's training as well. Everyone's welcome at these meetings because it's a very abundant environment. But when they go around and they speak and they meet all these people who've done our training and done really well, it kind of almost sells itself. And so many people who come and do, we have a year-long mastermind program. Very often they say, I know someone else who did your program and they did this, this, and this. So that word of mouth spreads. And we're fortunate we've been doing this such a long time. We've got a really good reputation and so many successful clients that, in an industry where, any kind of education, and particularly property education, not all property education is the same, unfortunately. And there are some people who are, let's say, quite salesy and they promise the world and John, from our show, we paint a very fair picture. We say, look, here's what you can do, but there are these risks and you need to be aware of this. And we always say it's not easy. You definitely need to put time and effort in, where some people try and sell the dream, which is unfortunate. So an industry where sometimes reputations are tarnished by other people who are not performing so well, it's important to have that proof out there. People who actually done our training, they've invested in themselves, they've changed their lives, and that helps sell. And always make sure you're giving massive value. And on our courses, another tip that people should have, certainly if you're doing some sort of training or service-based business, we have a money-back guarantee, not just the normal 14-day one. We say, look, come and do our training. And if after halfway through for our 3-day courses, etc., you don't think it's the best you've ever done in this sector, just let us know, give us a course to us back, and we'll give you all of your money back. So we really do take the risk away. It's a risk reversal. If you can do that for your clients and give them massive value, they're not going to want their money back.
Yep. Good tips. Simon, I know you've grown a business that's not dependent on a lot of staff, but there are businesses out there that are struggling at the moment to recruit good people. Do you have any thoughts on how to recruit and retain good people?
You know what? It's a real challenge, particularly right now. I don't think recruitment is my best skill, to be honest. But I'm very pleased to say generally, we've managed to hold on to our staff. We have some people who've been with me for a very, very long time. We have had some people leave, but sometimes they're people we're okay about leaving. And actually, just recently, I've just had a really good member of staff just say, actually, she's leaving because she's going to do another job, and it's nothing to do with us, she says. And look, we said, hey, look, you know what? You got to do what you got to do. And if for any reason it doesn't work out, we're still here. You can always come back to us. And so I think, just having the best relationship you can with your team is important. And I find it's not always about money. Money is important. We probably pay, I think, slightly higher than the average in the market. But actually, we invest in our team. Quite a few of my team have actually gone on and bought their own homes and investments because of the training that we give to our clients. And we want to develop our team. And, sometimes people say, oh, you don't want to develop your team too much because they might leave. Well, you don't want to have a team that are not developed, right? Because then you're stuck with people who aren't developed. So we develop people, we invest a lot in them. We try and incentivize them, not just through salary, but other ways to keep them on board. And touch wood, generally that's worked very well. And sometimes things happen, but yeah, that's kind of what we've done in the past.
Okay. Simon, I've been fairly critical on various sources about the education system that some of our kids are coming through nowadays, and some of the people that I see, and I just shake my head sometimes with the lack of social skills, the lack of soft skills, the lack of business knowledge. It's just disturbing. Should we as business owners be doing more to educate our kids, particularly those coming through college and university? And if so, what would we do?
I think we should. I mean, we could talk all day, and I'd love to talk because I'm very passionate about this as well. I completely agree with you. I think our current schooling system is failing our young adults because I don't think it prepares you for the real world. And I think you're right that I think a lot of people are kind of pushed down the funnel of you go to school, you got to go to university, you got to get a degree, etc. And whilst there might be certain professions where you probably do need to do that, if you're going to be a doctor or a solicitor, you probably need to do that. But there are some vocations like an engineer. You could go to university, which I did engineering university, but actually it's just as valid for people to become apprentices and work their way up through. And I think that what schools should do and what businesses could do is maybe open up to give people work experience to come and see what it's like being in a business, is that really try and look at the individual. And some people are not made to go to university and have that academic career. Actually, they'd be much better getting a hands-on vocational apprenticeship. And we've taken on apprentices in my business, and I'm very pleased to say that some of them have not been great, but most have been great. And we've actually then taken them on. And once they've qualified, we've increased their salary and they're really grateful. And guess what? They know the business. That's great. So I would encourage business owners to try and reach out and get apprentices. And it's not people who've been to university. It's people who are 16, 18, probably 18, I guess. They've come out of education and actually they're young. We can mold them, we can shape them, and they've not been kind of influenced by the people. And so I think that's a great opportunity for businesses to give back and help us support those people and also benefit as well. I think that, there are some careers. My father was a GP. He was a great GP he was a GP for 20, he's not with us anymore. He lived 27 years. He was a practicing GP. And he was the kind of doctor who, he really cared about the people. He was a real people person. A bit like property. Property is a people business. Being a doctor is a people business. And it was interesting. I remember him saying he actually was a GP trainer as well. And he had one guy who was academically brilliant. He was five A-star pluses, A levels, and first in the degree and stuff. And he came in and he was great, very intellectual, but actually not a great people person. He didn't spend time. And on a similar note, and I'm on a bit of a rant here now, nurses. My mum was a nurse. My mum was a very caring person. That's what you need. That's what a nurse is all about. But unfortunately, in the UK now, they want nurses to have gone to university. Well, I'm sorry, someone who's been to university and got the academic, when they get on a ward and they have to change bedpans and things, oh, I've been to university, I don't want to do that. And I know this because I've got friends who are in the industry, right? And so that is a particular career where actually I think going through and becoming an apprentice and becoming a nurse is probably far more valuable and going to produce a better nurse than going to university and learning how to be a nurse. That's just my personal view. And I hope I haven't upset anyone in the nursing industry who's got a degree here. But do you get where I'm coming from, John? Yeah,
100%.
And so I one of my passions is, and one of the things that we're starting to do is, I think part of the root is, and it's not the teacher's fault, it's a systemic problem with the way it's set up. And the world is changing so much. The education system has not kept up with it. That's the problem. And so one of the things that I am doing now is we want to help educate kids in school, not about property, but about money and about finance and about entrepreneurship. I would have so loved to have learned about good debt and bad debt when I was at school. I would have liked to learn about compound interest and how you can use credit cards to advise and why they're good and why they're not good. And just become aware at a younger age of how much it costs to live. Because when you're living at home with mum and dad and you're at school, you don't really understand that. And even when you go to university, you probably don't really get it. But just some basic stuff. So that's some things that I'm doing, and we're looking to do more of that in schools and really I'm having a slight change in what I'm doing. So that's one of the things I'm doing in the future. And I think it's so important that we do that. And the one final thing I'd say about, I think the best thing about university, and I'm not knocking education, I'm a big fan on that, and certain cases, the good thing about university, if people move away from a home and they're getting that kind of life experience about that independence and around it, that's a really good thing. But I think it's really dangerous if people go to university just because they think that's what they need to do, and they come out of university in the UK with 40 or 50,000 pounds of debt, and they might then just get an admin job somewhere because there are so many graduates. So I think if you have kids, getting to really think about what do they really want to do, and sometimes that's the problem, they don't know, but maybe get them out to some work experience and try and find out, and just recognize university is not always the only or the best approach.
Yep. And I was reading a couple of studies on this. In the United States, for instance, student debt is a bigger amount in total than credit card debt, would you believe?
Wow.
And that knocked my socks off. And then the second thing is, you can't get a plumber or an electrician for love nor money. So anyone out there, it's a license to print money. If you go to Simon Zutshi's property course and become one of those guys, you'll make a fortune. Simon, you're part of the PSA, the Professional Speakers Association. What benefits to become part of the association? I know you speak around the world and what have you, but what's the value in becoming part of an association group?
Well, I joined in 2003, the PSA in the UK, and there's a National Speakers Association in America, which is the American version. And I think that anyone who's in business, I think you should join your local association, because again, you're going to, just by mixing with the right kind of people, you're going to learn from other people. And I've learned so much just by attending events, and I'm continually investing in myself to get better at what I do. I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, and so speaking is so important for me to be able to articulate and get across the message and inspire people and make it simple for them to go and take action. That's my job. So I need to keep on getting better and better at that. So over the last 18 years, I've been in those organizations by going to events and learning. I've just got better and better. I think we can always get better, which is why you're continually improving. And I've just met some great friends and great contacts, and it's really useful just to have people who can help you out in the same industry, who might have some knowledge and expertise, and you're not really competing. And it's just good to just mastermind with those people and share knowledge and ideas. So continue to invest in yourselves, guys. Get expert in what you do in your business, your industry. Get around like-minded people. We run Property Mastermind, and people who come onto those, that they become more successful because they're around like-minded people. So whatever business and industry you're in, I suggest join your associations, get into groups of people in that industry, continue to learn, have an open mind, and you will become a more successful business owner.
Yep, brilliant. Simon, you've just having a nice payday at the moment, according to rumours around the place. What's next on your horizon?
Well, so as I said, things are changing for me a little bit. I'm actually in the process of selling my training and education business, which I never thought I'd do, because I'm kind of fundamental. Crowd Property is running itself, but I'm fundamental. That's because I love what I do. John, I don't have to work anymore. My property, my investments, my business, I don't have to work, but I do it because I love it. I could never sit on a beach doing nothing, partly because I'd get bored. Also, I'd go pink and Chrissy because I'm so blonde. I think, and I'm contracted to kind of stay in and grow. And so I'm going to be growing my business around the world. So PIN and the mastermind we'll be going to around the world. That's my job to grow, and I think that's going to be really interesting as a creator from the wealth dynamics profiling, and people might be familiar with. That's going to be very exciting for me, something different to do. I'm still going to be investing in property. It's a great time to invest, and lots of opportunity, not just in the UK. I want to be buying some in Australia and some in America as well. I think some great opportunities around the world. And by the way, the world is now a very small place, thanks to the internet and some of the mastermind groups that I'm in around the world. You get to meet people and opportunities. So the opportunity is everywhere. The skill is working out which are the best ones to go for, because we only have a limited amount of time in any day. So I'm doing more investing. If I eventually stop, I won't compete with my former business in terms of real estate. I'm sure I'll be doing some other sort of training because I love it. Maybe in personal development, maybe something in business. I don't know. We'll have to see. And then finally, the charity, the foundation I want to set up to help educate kids. I mean, that's probably a generation, a decade of work there to change the thing. Imagine if we can change the way that kids think in schools, such that they don't think they have to go and work for someone else, that they could actually not only work for themselves, but they could actually be the employer and employ other people. And in the UK, we have a real systemic problem that we have generations and generations of people who are on benefits. And if you're born into that and everyone around you is that, and that's what you think, and sometimes the parents leave it to the kids to the schools to do the education and the discipline, etc., and that doesn't work. Well, what if we can instill in just a few of those kids to think differently? And some self-made multimillionaires are people who've come from that kind of environment and said, I don't want this, I want to get out. But that's very unusual. But what if we can change that and create a generation of young adults who think differently and can help grow the economy that way and change the way people think? We could really make this country great again.
Well, they're fantastic thoughts, and I certainly echo them. And I think it's a pretty good place to stop right now. Simon Zutshi, it's been an absolute pleasure. And we really thank you for giving up your time and sharing some of your thoughts with us today. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for asking me, John. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.